I have sad news to report. DVDs are dead. Now, this probably doesn't come as a massive surprise to, anyone really. But I thought I was going to do one of those really sort of productive things, and I thought, right, because I've got a couple of days off, I will gather up DVDs that I know I have spares of, or which I've upgraded to Blu-Rays. I'm going to take them into town and just get shot of them. So in Britain there's a store called CEX, and basically it's a sort of exchange kind of store where you can give stuff in, you get a few pennies back, and you get sort of store credit or you get cash. And funnily enough, I made a detour via the opticians before I got there, and the lady who was serving me very kindly pointed out that I was unlikely to get anything more than pennies for my DVDs, and she was absolutely right, basically. So it came as no shock to me when the sum I was offered for a fairly big shopping bag of DVDs and a few Blu-Rays was, it wasn't going to give me much back, basically. But I thought it's better than them going in the bin. So I thought, somebody else can now enjoy these possibly. And, when I had a look around in the store, it occurred to me that the DVDs in there were now so cheap that it was like the equivalent of an old school VHS rental store, because you could sort of go in, probably find almost anything you wanted on a physical piece of media and go home with it, and that would be it. That would be yours to keep forever. And it did sort of occur to me that I now pay for multiple subscriptions to various services, which basically just allow me to view the stuff that I often have on DVD or Blu-ray anyway, which technically speaking I already have a license for. And I don't even get the extras on the streaming services. So it's a bit strange to me in that sense, and I'd actually be interested to hear people's comments about whether or not they think the quality of streaming services is on a par with, say, even a Blu-ray. Now, apparently Blu-rays are still a little bit of a thing. I think I got a little bit more money per Blu-ray, but not massively. And I just wonder if, is this the point at which you just have to sort of call time on physical media full stop? That then set my thought processes going, which is always a dangerous thing. And I thought, I wonder what I've actually got in my remaining DVD and Blu-ray collection, and is any of it unusual to the extent that you might not get it on a streaming service, or what have I got, basically. Time for an audit. So what follows is that audit that's probably taken me a solid sort of 2 days of moving stuff around the place to get it in range of this camera, to then bounce through it all. And I have collected a lot of stuff down the years, and I'm not the sort to throw it out. I do tend to hang on to it, and you can call me a hoarder if you wish, but these aren't, these are all sort of targeted buys. They're not random buys. There are buys that are very much in my wheelhouse in terms of my interests. Some of them are from my dad's collection, who's now passed, sadly. And he didn't have a huge collection. He's probably got more VHS still at my parents' house, and he had DVDs, but he had the odd DVD that I got him. So it's really just a trip down memory lane for me as much as anything else, just to remind myself of just what I've actually got in my collection in this house. And which is, I can watch at my leisure at any point in time, regardless of how many subscriptions I have. There could be an argument for me having a better Blu-ray player, actually, because the most up-to-date Blu-ray player I've probably got in the house is either the Xbox One or the Blu-ray disc drive in my PC. I mean, a lot of people probably just don't have discs. And one of the things I want to look at in looking through my collection here, which I know I have done now, so you'll see this, is, we're losing the box art. Some of the box art for these things, some of the ideas behind the box art even, were really clever. And we're going to completely miss out on that as a result of everything going digital. And, I'm years behind the curve here in terms of going down this particular way of thinking, but it did make me a little bit sad that you won't unless you were to dig into someone's kind of Amazon library or whatever other streaming services are available, you're never actually going to know from their sort of living space what they actually like to watch, because where's the evidence for it? You know, there won't be the DVD box sets in a cupboard somewhere or on a bookshelf, as I tend to do with mine, to say what this individual actually likes. And it's a bit of a shame, because I think that's quite a sort of, it's kind of part of, to my mind anyway, it's part of putting your personal stamp on a place, is to have, you know, these, you know, films and TV shows that you enjoy on display, so others kind of understand what you're into genre-wise and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was a bit of a just a sort of a reminisce for me, I suppose. And also, you know, if I do get burgled or the house burns down, I've now got a record of all the Blu-rays and DVDs that were in the house at this point in time. So that's always handy, of course. I'm sure there's probably an app out there that would allow me to actually form a proper catalogue of all this stuff. But this will have to do for the time being, because I definitely don't have any more energy to do anything more this weekend, because it's taken me long enough to work through this. I've had piles from like up to here. But one thing I have actually done, ironically, is I mean, there was sort of it in order already, but I will now be able to put them into another order if I wish to do so in putting them back. But I've got to put them back, so I'm just going to launch into it. I've tried to sort of chop it up into little pieces, and I'm probably going to do a part 2, because I think I've recorded quite a lot of footage in terms of raw playtime. So for this week, this Thursday slot and the next Thursday slot will be just running through my DVD/Blu-ray collection. It may not be that interesting for you, I don't know, but it might give you some insight into, you know, the sort of the thinking behind this channel in terms of it being the future of the past, because you'll see just how much of the future I used to watch in the past. There you go. Tagline completed. Let's get into my rather large collection. Good luck. Have some popcorn ready. Yeah. Bye. I'm just chuckling. It's now the next day, and I just filmed a little tiny bit of this segment, noting that I'd invoked the luck perk here from Fallout. And luckily, I realised that my mic wasn't on just in time to stop wasting my time for about half an hour. So that was good. Luck perk, thanks. Cheers. Okay, moving on. The second time. Last things off my shelves. Battlestar Galactica, Blu-ray, the original series, not the remake. Again, one I haven't actually watched, and again, one I haven't looked for on sort of online streaming services, and I don't know whether anyone would actually be showing this. You know, I just don't know. Maybe some of the more sort of retro channels might show it, but you know, this is what started it all. It's a very cool cover as well. I just like it. So another little box set there. But of course, speaking of the remake, I began here with the DVD, which was the sort of, I think this was the sort of intro episodes, the sort of, I don't know if it was a pilot episode or, what does this say on the back? So I think this is just the sort of initial episode, or episodes perhaps, but not the full series. Because I got the full series. In fact, I actually had separate DVD box sets of each series, but then I got rid of those a couple of days back now, but now I've got this, which is the big old Blu-ray, the complete series from Playback, who is still going even now apparently, but I managed to get this a few years back now, of course. But again, yeah, I'm not actually sure if this includes Razor, and I don't think it includes Blood and Chrome either, but I did find when I was excavating all these discs, I do in fact have Battlestar Galactica Razor on DVD, just for you know, the sake of completion, of course, knowing me. But I don't think I've ever actually sat and watched Blood and Chrome, so let me know in the comments if I should try and find that one, because I've just never really sorted it out. Also on my shelves is this, The first time on DVD, 4-disc set. Now, I don't actually know if this is... Oh, so all 3 classic films digitally restored and remastered with new 5.1 surround. But is this the special edition, I wonder? Because it might just be that this one is the one that is the standard version of the films, and not sort of the actual special edition re-edit. So I'll have to have a check on that, I think, and look into that. But that is, I do like it. It's a nice sort of embossed cover for that. So nice to have that. And I've also, of course, got this one, which was, I think this might have been the first time it came out on Blu-ray. But this was only films 1 through 6. It doesn't include the newer ones, which, again, they're not my Star Wars films, so I'm not that fussed about them, really. I don't even know that my son would be, particularly. So, it's kind of take it or leave it for me, really. But this, to my mind, is actually the complete saga in some respects, if you see what I mean. So, I'm happy enough to have that on Blu-ray. That's lovely. Right. Just thinking about my order here, and I think I'm going to go Farscape, which means I need to change my setup. So here we have Farscape seasons 1 and 2 on DVD, and I'll show you 3 and 4 in a moment. But you see, this is the sort of thing that we now miss out on with digital only media. Someone designed the spine backs of all of these sets so that they formed a bigger image. And I just think that's a lovely touch, because I've had these on display, even though I don't touch them terribly often at all, very, very happily on a shelf, because I view them as being, sort of an artistic work in and of themselves, yeah? So I kind of miss the big box sets like this. If you're unfamiliar, Farscape was a Jim Henson show, but it was a mix of live action and puppets and lots and lots of wacky science fiction fun, but with a sort of an overarching storyline, and it was just a really off the, I just know, how do you do it? Even describing it is hard. You can only really watch it to understand how it took itself both seriously and but was also hilarious at the same time. Just a great show. If you've never seen it, try and keep watching it through, because it'll grow on you. It certainly grew on me, and this is why I went to the effort of collecting all of these various box sets. Interestingly as well, for the audience you'd think it was aiming at, do you notice that there's an 18 and a 15 ratings mixed in here? See, ostensibly, the BBC treated it like a kids show, but actually there was some really scary, creepy stuff in it. So it's never quite what you expect it to be. And as you can see, seasons 3 and 4 continue in a very, very similar vein, but all of these are very uniform boxes, so they all work really well together. This is the odd one out. That is actually a final box that they did for Farscape Peacekeeper Wars. So what happened was, basically they got to the end of season 4 and then got cancelled, but the storyline was left unresolved, with in some respects almost literally a cliffhanger, and somehow, some way, and I think it was a good couple of years odd later, they managed to get this TV film made called The Peacekeeper Wars, which resolved everything, which was terrific, because it deserved to get resolved. They'd done a lot of setup to that point, and it deserved a resolution. So I was really happy for them that they managed to do it. I've no idea if it would ever get a revival. It was so kind of its time, and just hard to. It's probably one of those shows that's best left untouched, just for the sake of keeping the memory intact in some respects, But I don't know, with these days it seems to be a case of never say never with the studios, so I don't know. But really, really fun show, very, very unique show. Also hilariously parodied in Stargate, because Stargate inherited both Ben Browder and Claudia there, Claudia Black, inherited both of those characters as recurring characters in Stargate later in the Stargate's run. So they did poke fun at Farscape along the way off the back of that. So it was a fun time. Now I'm going to start really rattling through some of my sort of films for a previous era. I'm sort of phrasing it in that sense because these are the older ones that I've got various versions of. Now this one is hilarious because possibly Gareth mentioned this to me once, but I got this in an auction with lots of normal videotapes. So when it presented itself like this, I actually thought it might have been a videotape, but it's actually not, it's actually discs. But being the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it decided it was going to do something quirky and present the discs as if they were in a box that looks like a video cassette. So well played, Hitchhikers, well played. Entirely in keeping, and I wholeheartedly approve of that little bit of subterfuge on their part, because that was well played. I've also got this slightly more run-of-the-mill kind of DVD there as well, which again is also another remastered and restored version. But these are all the original series ones. They're not they're not the remake film. So let's start drilling into this now. So we have 2001, Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey. But also 2010, the year we make contact, and 2010 doesn't get a lot of airtime these days at all. I'm not quite sure why. It's got some very good people in it. Roy Schneider. Always blank on this lady's name. What's her name? It's not helping me at all there, is it? John Lithgow's in it. Helen Mirren, that's the lady's name I was thinking of. Helen Mirren's in it as well. So quite early doors for them, but it's got some great, it's got a great ship in it. It's called the Leonov, which is kind of like the Omega destroyers from Babylon 5. And no, it's not like the Sulaco from Aliens at all. Actually, that's a load of cobblers. So yeah, ignore that bit. But anyway, two very, very classic science fiction films there. And I mean, 2001 you can't ignore because it's a complete classic, but I also rate 2010 simply because I think it's a very strong science fiction film, and it's a classic sort of more 80s science fiction film. Kubrick's probably from the 70s actually, I think, originally. I'm not going to be able to verify that at speed, I don't think, but possibly it's as early as late 70s. But certainly two I'd recommend that you see at some point if you can. I'm going to rattle through a few at a time here because I've got this huge teetering pile of discs here that I want to crack through and try and cover. So some classics from my childhood here. Jason and the Argonauts probably doesn't need much introduction. It's been remade since, but that was the classic sort of Ray Harryhausen animation there. Great film. Used to watch it to death at Christmas times. Forbidden Planet, again, really famous science fiction film. If you haven't already seen it, try and catch it. Very good. And Krull, again, deeply obscure film. Only people of my age have heard of it, particularly. Got some quite early appearances from very famous people like Liam Neeson in it. But of its day, but nonetheless really enjoyable fantasy romp with some sort of science fiction-y overtones. So it's fun. So that's those three. Now, some of these I need to put on a separate pile because some of these I have to admit to not actually having watched. THX 1138, an early George Lucas film. The THX 1138 is often referenced in his other films. I have not watched it. I've seen clips of it and I know of it, and it's been in my to-be-watched collection for quite a while. So has The Iron Giant. I know of The Iron Giant. I know snippets of The Iron Giant as a film. I saw it in Ready Player One and I can identify him readily, but I haven't watched the film, would you believe? So I need to watch the film. Now, I have watched of course, caught up with Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. It's completely bonkers, but I understand it was a massive sort of cult hit in the 80s. So it is kind of what it is. Again, it's, well, I can't even describe it. It's kind of science fiction fantasy, but completely out there. So yeah, that's Arrow Video, and Arrow Video do a lot of very cool stuff that is deeply obscure. But if you're ever trying to find something that you're not sure about who might be releasing it, Arrow Video might well be worth a look, because they release a lot of deeply obscure things. Now then, Big Trouble in Little China. Loved that. Me and my dad used to love that film when he was still with us, sadly. Just great fun, great romp, fantasy sort of. Again, it's one of those ones that's really hard to describe. I think fantasy, it fits most firmly with, and again, sort of Kim Cattrall's in it. You know, there's some very famous faces in a lot of these early 80s films. Now, Westworld, I don't think I've ever actually sat and watched Westworld completely, although I do have a very dim memory of having watched some of it when I was abroad somewhere, which weirdly links into a memory of Morons from Outer Space. Odd, but there you go. That's just, you know, a thing for me. And also The Thing. I don't think I've ever sat and watched The Thing, which again is crazy, obviously. But obviously I know what The Thing is about, but I've just never ever, I don't think, made the effort to actually sit and watch it. So that a couple of these will go on my to be watched list, because, you know, I can't really claim to be a science fiction buff and not having watched some of these things. Now then, these are some recent acquisitions actually. The Last Starfighter, again Arrow Video, has been incredibly hard to find on disc up to this point. Also Silent Running, I don't think has had much of a re-release history either. So I have watched all of these, but it has been a while. Lost Boys in particular. My son asked me, what's that about, Dad? And I said, vampires, kinda. Which is, you know, as much as I could tell him, really. So yeah, I mean, I want to come back to The Last Starfighter and Silent Running, because I haven't watched them for a long time, end to end. But all, again, you know, the two on the left in particular, classic science fiction films that you might want to check out. I'm just going to add those to my list. Okay. Now, Ladyhawke. Now, strangely, this is sealed, and yet I'm sure that I've watched it relatively recently. Maybe I looked for it and found it to watch on the streaming service. I really like Ladyhawke. It's got Howard in it, and also I think it's Michelle Pfeiffer, quite a very young Michelle Pfeiffer. But just one of those sort of fantasy films where I just found myself getting quite happily lost in it. But again, very much of its day. And of course, when Top Gun got its reboot, I showed my son my DVD of Top Gun that I already had, because, well, I already had it. So that got me brownie points. So he managed to. I think he might have watched the sequel before the prequel. I'm not sure. But also got here the Terminator on a feature pack 2-disc set, but it's DVD. So I'm probably owe myself a Blu-ray upgrade of the Terminator at some point. Because it would be rude not to, quite frankly. Now then, so here's some things I have upgraded, but actually this is only a DVD of The Black Hole, but I love the cover on that one. It's a really nice one. And if you've never watched The Black Hole, I'm sure it's on Disney Plus, but you know, it's a great film, incredibly dark film for Disney. No idea why Disney took it on, but they did. The original Dune there on Blu-ray, only recently got it on Blu-ray, so I've now got rid of my DVD version of it. Although actually, ironically, when I did that auction pickup, I did also get a very nice DVD boxed version of Dune as well. So I did hang on to that version because it's pretty. And I've got Ghostbusters there on Blu-ray as well, because again, that was a sort of an upgrade job, because no child of the 80s cannot have the original Ghostbusters, I feel. Now, I surprised myself with this one. I've completely forgot that I picked up Inner Space. This is why doing this from time to time is useful, because it reminds you that you don't need to go out and buy these things. You've already got them. I loved Inner Space. I must have watched it a good half dozen times growing up. I always loved that idea of being miniaturized and being put into someone's body, and just so you can then sort of submarine your way around the place. Great fun, hilarious film, and again, some very, very well-known people in it. Apollo 13, just like it, 'cause it's hard science fact. You know, you'd think it was science fiction, but it's not. It's actually hard science fact. So very, very well done film. Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, you know, really good people in it. And Time Bandits, which is a great romp in a sort of, I want to say it's Monty Python-esque, but it kind of is and isn't. It's just a very good British science fiction film. So that's well worth checking out. It does have John Cleese in it. That's those. This is good. I'm cracking on well here. I've got Blade Runner, The Final Cut. I've no idea which flavour of Blade Runner this actually is, but for some reason I've never owned it on disc, so I finally picked it up on Blu-ray. Also, got a nice double feature there of Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal. I really ought to get that on Blu-ray. Both of them on Blu-ray, really. But I did also pick up this one on Blu-ray relatively recently, Flash Gordon. Had the DVD of it for quite a long time, but I suspect that will be a much better version of it. And again, that is such a childhood favourite for me, is Flash Gordon. It's just such a, you know, what do you call it? Is it science fiction? Is it fantasy? Is it both? Yes, almost certainly. But it's just such a great fun film. If you haven't watched it, I have no idea what current audience would make it. Some would probably think it's complete trash, or whatever the right phrase is, but you know, it is what it is. And for some of us, it's cool. And that also features music by Queen, of course, famously. Highlander, there can be only one, except there are lots of sequels. So again, I mean, Sean Connery, I love the film. I always have loved the film. I love the idea of it. It's had its sort of mythos messed with a little bit by the sequels, but I believe that the series that followed it was also quite highly thought of. I think there's quite a big fan base for the series, but it's not something I've ever watched. So Raiders of the Lost Ark, picked that up recently because I thought, I can't believe I haven't got that in my collection, because again, classic film of its time, and of course still, you know, this is a franchise that is still refusing to die even now, 40 years later. And I've also got Willow there as well. Now, I think I sat and started to watch it, and for some reason I got distracted and I didn't ever actually finish it again. But I'd be interested to hear in the comments how you rate Willow these days, whether or not you think it's, you know, still holds up. But of course, it's got the sadly now deceased Val Kilmer in it. So I guess that's going to be a claim to fame for it, if nothing else, in this day and age, for, you know, slightly for the wrong reason, I guess. But has there been a reboot of it? Was there a series? I can't remember. I can't remember if that was actually a thing, or if I'm just making that up completely. Just happened across Terminator 2. So again, that was weird. That's been a gap in my collection for ages. I've had that original Terminator disc for donkey's years, but I didn't have the second film, which seems stupid because it's such a, you know, it's considered such a major sort of leap for all sorts of reasons. You know, I'm really surprised I didn't have it. Also got Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice, of course, the original. I still haven't seen the sequel, actually. I should do it at some point. And I've got Back to the Future trilogy on DVD, 4-disc Ultimate Edition, but I'm quite sure there's a more Ultimate Edition that has been released since this one came out, because mine's ancient. I mean, you know, it is what it is, isn't it? So I should probably get that on Blu-ray at some point as well. But again, I mean, again, this is an interesting thing for me, because the reason I started doing this was because I was confronted with the reality of the fact that the disc market might be sort of somewhat dead these days. But I still like having these physical objects on my shelves to be able to rifle through like this, you know? So we've got a 2-disc collector's edition of Tron there. We've got The Goonies, which I've had for donkey's years, hopefully it still plays, and Short Circuit and Flight of the Navigator. Again, all of these films of my childhood, loved them to death. Short Circuit is quite hard to watch, and so is Flight of the Navigator at times, but you know, they are such epic 80s childhood films for me personally. your mileage may of course vary, but I grew up on this stuff. So for me, having this in my collection is just, you know, lovely. All the feels there. Wow. Somewhat ironically, at the bottom of the pile is The Never-Ending Story, which again has had sequels and is still very fondly remembered, I believe, by, you know, many people. And yeah, it is what it is. You know, it's Falcor there and all the various characters. I haven't actually sat and watched it for quite a while. I think my son's seen it more recently than I have, actually. But yeah, Never-Ending Story, another 80s classic there. So, what else can I crack through here? Well, now I'm going to get onto a fairly sort of random selection of DVD films which are slightly more recent than the 80s, basically. That's about the only way I can really describe it. Although, having said that, I just came across this one. So actually, these may be still in the 80s era, some of these. Yeah, they might. Actually, I think some of them are going to be older than the 80s in the sense that they're 1970s and so on. But anyway, I'll rattle through this pile and then I'm going to get some more for you to have a look at. So you've got Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is, again, epic British comedy. Probably quite controversial these days. I don't know. A lot of the Monty Python films are right on the edge of what they could get away with even back then. So nowadays they're probably completely sort of out there, you know. I think this is one of my dads or something. Glengarry Glen Ross. Got no idea. Good people in it, but I've no idea what that's all about. And again, something I think from my dad's collection, Robert De Niro, Jeremy Irons, The Mission. It's probably one of those really sort of epic films, which is impressive if you know what the heck it's actually about. So there's those. Now, of course, no collection of mine could be complete without a little bit of Predator in the mix. It's my 2-disc special edition Uncut and Unleashed version of Predator, but not on Blu-ray. There must be a decent Blu-ray edition of Aliens and Predator, and you know, there must be. But again, it comes down to, I think, that question of, well, is it worth it these days? Because I could just stream whatever I wanted to. I'd be interested to hear people's views on this in the comments, because do you actually get better quality on Blu-ray with extras and sound and so on than you would do streaming? I believe arguably yes you do, from what I've read or heard, but you know, that may be apocryphal, I don't know. Princess Bride, again, classic comedy film. No fantasy-loving individual, swashbuckling individual should be without a watch of that at some point in their lives. Battlestar Galactica, just a sort of the one-off, probably one of the TV film style Battlestar Galacticas there. And for some reason, I've got another edition of 2001: A Space Odyssey there. I picked up loads of those. I got rid of so many copies of those off the back of that auction that I picked up. It was crazy. The guy literally loved that film, so he had about half a dozen different versions. And indeed, this was another one of those from the auction, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but in a really sort of, you know what, it's got a little sort of tassel. I've no idea why it's got a tassel. 30th anniversary, so it's a really sort of thick tome. But again, it's only a DVD, I believe. It's lovely artwork on it. So again, it's one of those ones where I can completely see why you go for it from an artwork point of view. Presentationally, it's rather lovely. Oh yes, look, and it sort of opens up and out like that, so you get a full sort of imagery spread like that as well. Yeah, it's lovely. That it's very clever, nice. What else have we got? Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Again, I know of it. It's a classic. I've never watched it, so I don't know. Perhaps I should watch it. This is one of my dad's favourites, God bless him. The Beastmaster. He didn't have some random taste, but I've definitely inherited some of his taste in random fantasy films. I mean, this and Conan the Barbarian, you know, it was kind of, yeah, it's all good. It's good 80s fun. Does exactly what it says on the tin. The bloke who can control beasts. Dear. Lord of the Flies. Again, famous film, not one I've picked up. Must have got it from my dad. And Brazil, which is Terry Gilliam film. Again, really good, Robert De Niro, Bob Hoskins in it. Haven't watched it for donkey's years, but it's quite surreal if I remember rightly. And I think it's not quite what I expected from the front cover either. So it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. I'm Batman. All right, no, I'm not. But it's this. I've just got two of these to show you because they're just quite random examples of modern stuff that I've got in this bizarrely. There must have been like a time for like a month or something where they thought it would be a good idea to release these novelty items in with the DVDs. So we've got a bat cowl in with this one, and I've got Terminator Salvation as a T600 limited edition sort of face thing. That's a Blu-ray, that one, that Terminator Salvation. I didn't even realise that. That's actually a Blu-ray. I did actually quite like Terminator Salvation. I do kind of rate it as one of the modern Terminator films because it dealt with a period of time that we hadn't really seen in terms of it being in the post-apocalyptic era. So I gave it some kudos for that, if nothing else. But yeah, just a sort of really random choice of case design for both of those, which made me chuckle as a pairing. So what else have we got now? Have I just put this new stuff down? Oh yeah. So let's have a quick look at my Jerry Anderson stuff because I'm bound to have Jerry Anderson, aren't I? We've got Space 1999, the complete series. Bizarrely, this is a network release, and I think they've actually folded sadly. But the irony was that when I took this into CEX, the guy gleefully told me that he was going to be able to sell, for some reason, my Space 1999 DVD box sets for quite a bit, and then probably proceeded to give me about £2 each for them. And it was like, why are you telling me this? Would it not make me less bitter to not know that? But anyway, it was what it was. It was just trying to get rid of them at speed. So that one was a relatively recent pickup. This one I've had for donkey's years. In fact, I could probably get rid of this because I do actually have this series on Blu-ray now as well. And this, of course, is the Terrorhawks. But for the longest time, Terrorhawks was incredibly difficult to get as a full run because there are only some limited VHS video releases of it. So I kind of struggled actually to find it until this came out on DVD. So you can see there, it's just 3 DVDs there of it. I've got, again, another network release, The Lost World of Jerry Anderson. So various Jerry Anderson shows that just had a very, very sort of short-lived run or were just kind of ideas as much as anything else, because apparently he did like to keep throwing ideas at the network to try and keep getting stuff made and sort of rolled over. But some interesting ship designs in some of these as well that you probably just wouldn't have seen before. I think one of these is the pilot for Space Precinct as well. So just an interesting one to have a look at some point. And again, it's one of those ones that's I've probably never actually sat and watched. This one, Escape the Cull. So I'd had that for ages as my only example of Space 1999 that I actually owned, but obviously I've now picked it up in full since. But that's a very early DVD of Space 1999. Had a good little intro screen, as I recall. This is a nice one, UFO, the complete series. So you can get that as a DVD box set, or you could. It might have had a Blu-ray release. I think they've just done Space Precinct as a Blu-ray release, but that is every episode remastered. So I did start watching it at one point because it's remarkably dark for a Jerry Anderson show. But it was the. Now, to get this right, was it the precursor to Space 1999? I think it was. I think it's that way round. So yeah, it's it's an interesting one if you're not familiar with it. I'll just shut this in there for the sake of modernity. That's Thunderbirds Are Go, which is the more recent CGI, but also real world, interestingly, production of Thunderbirds for this generation's kids. I quite liked it. It had lots of nods of the head to the original series, so I do have time for this, and my son and I used to sit and watch that together, so that's nice. Some examples there of older Anderson shows: Captain Scarlet, Stingray and Joe 90 on a single disc, just so you can sort of relive that little bit of Jerry Anderson history. I never got into Captain Scarlet. Stingray I do remember, Joe 90 I remember very vaguely from my early childhood. That's just a disc of Thunderbirds from a bigger compilation that I've got. That's my current Terrorhawks Blu-ray. So you can see how that's now, that's a sort of modern advancement for you. So I've gone from 3 DVDs to a single Blu-ray, which has probably got more stuff on it than the DVD had. So that's a nice compact way of keeping it. And they've tried quite hard with the Terrorhawks of late. There's new graphic novels available, all sorts of bits and bobs. So they're definitely trying to keep it alive. That's just that's a 9-disc set of all the Thunderbirds episodes, all 32 episodes of Thunderbirds. It seems odd to me that was all that they only had that many, but they were quite long episodes. You know, you kind of forget with Thunderbirds they were nearly an hour long each, so you do get quite a lot of bang for your buck out of that box set. So that's good. And I think that was all those are actually all the Jerry Anderson ones that I've got. So let me delve back into some films again now. Right, 140-mile round trip later, I'm back again. So here we have Solo, a Star Wars story, and Rogue One, another Star Wars story. I'm not sure I've ever really sat down and given Solo a proper chance, to be honest. Rogue One I very much enjoyed, for obvious reasons really. It's just a very, very quality film which would not be out of place as a prequel to A New Hope at all. So, yeah, they absolutely nailed it with that one. What can I say? Solo, I need to give it another go, I think, because I think I've watched it in bits rather than as a sit down, so I'll look at it again sometime. I'm very non-committal on that one, as you can tell, but that's about as far as I'm willing to go, I think. Pick this up, haven't got around to watching it. Iron Sky. It's a sort of science fiction, World War II-y sort of thing, which I think I've seen clips of on YouTube, but it looks like it could be quite good fun. Don't think it takes itself overly seriously, but I will have to have a look at it at some point. Now, again, this is another one that I've only ever seen really sort of clips of, but it's got this very cool cover, which I don't know if it'll come out on film or not, but it's alternating between Bruce Willis and his younger self, I believe. A film called Looper. So I'm going to have a look at this, because it's definitely got a sort of time travel-y, John Wicky sort of vibe to it, I believe. But as I say, not one I've got to yet, but it's on my list. Definitely on my list. Can't find my pile now. Too many piles going on. Okay. Another two I've not seen yet. Taken and Super 8. Super 8 I think I picked up just because, again, I knew it had a science fiction theme to it, and obviously produced by Steven Spielberg, which I always take to be somewhat reassuring, and also J.J. Abrams. So definitely one I want to look at, but I don't know anything about it yet. And Liam Neeson Taken, extended harder cut, purely because I know lines from the film, but I've never actually watched it. So as it was going for a song, I thought it would be rude not to. So I grabbed those two. What else do we have here? Oh yes, for no other reason than I hadn't really sort of mentioned it when I was looking at the Alien quadrilogy. I've also got a very drippy Alien vs Predator 2-disc Extreme Edition, of which I had several, but some of which I've got rid of. And it's quite cool because when you flip it over, it's got the Predator on the flip side. I didn't entirely hate the Alien vs Predator films. They could have been worse. I don't know if that's really a good commentary on them or not. But anyway, I was introduced to it as a concept through the Dark Horse comics. So, yeah. House of Flying Daggers. And now is that 37-2? I think this is generally called Betty Blue because it is quite a blue film, but it's a good French film, but it's not for the faint-hearted, let's put it that way. House of Flying Daggers, one of those sort of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of era films, I think it's fair to say. But very, very, very good. I can't remember the last time I watched it, but I think I have watched it. So, if you like a little bit of sort of mid-air kung fu-y stuff, that's one of those sorts of films. I've no idea what the official genre name is, but, Okay, moving on. Lost in Space. That's a weird one for me. I really like the soundtrack, and I like some of the effects work in it. Is it cheesy as all heck? Yes, probably. But do I hate it? Well, no, not really, because it was one of those quite early films actually to be a derivative of a classic 60s TV show, whilst not completely sort of ripping the Michael out of it, but also giving multiple nods to it in the way that it was designed. So actually I had a certain amount of time for it in being deferential to the original series in that way. And of course it has had a reboot on Netflix as a series, which I've not caught up on. So it'd be interesting to hear in the comments if anyone rates it as a series, because it might be one I need to have a look at. Randomly, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Prometheus. So in amongst my various elements of my collection, I've probably got most of the Aliens films apart from the most recent Romulus one. Although I don't think that I have Alien Covenant. I need to watch Prometheus again because I think it just largely confused me when I watched it. So I do need to have a look at it. But again, I'm used to the Alien universe from the Dark Horse comics, and the navigators, the space navigators, I think their backstory has shifted somewhat. So I probably need to just sort of take a step back and look at it again. And also on the left we have the modern reincarnation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which again I picked up in the auction. I don't think I would have gone out of my way to get it. And again, I don't know if I really rate it. I think I need to watch that one again as well. Because my memory of it is firmly fixed in the past with the, sort of the Arthur Dent in front of a bulldozer kind of imagery of the original series. So, yeah. So now I'm going to get into superheroes. So all of these made me chuckle because when Wolverine and Deadpool came out, of course, memories came rushing back of all of these films. But interestingly, I don't have a copy of the Fantastic Four. So, X-Men. X-Men 2. 2 discs special edition. Again, all on DVDs because I was getting these back in the day when, these were probably out at the time, not long after the time when the films themselves actually came out. So, these are not recent additions to my collection at all. Although this one, of course, is. I've got X-Men Apocalypse there, and X-Men Days of Future Past, and X-Men First Class there. And I'm getting very out of order here because obviously those are the more sort of modern era X-Men films, whereas in fact the one I should have shown you before that was The Last Stand, which would have made more sense in the continuity of X-Men 1 and 2. I have also got X-Men Dark Phoenix. So I think I'm actually up to date on my X-Men films. I've got all of them in one way, one form or another. I just don't have them all on Blu-ray. And then, of course, there are those sort of slightly more obscure ones, which again were resurrected in Wolverine, Deadpool. So here we have Daredevil. So of course, as soon as I saw Jennifer Garner, I went, yep, I've got that. And obviously Ben Affleck is there. But I mean, Ben Affleck's probably played superheroes in more, well, not genres, but in more sort of from more universes than most others, because he's been both Marvel Daredevil and of course DC Batman. And in the Kevin Smith's sort of universe as well. He might even, I don't know if he actually had a superhero character in that universe, but he was involved with the creation of superheroes in that universe, I suppose, in a sense. So that was kind of, he's had a lot of sort of toings and froings with the genre over time. I also had Wesley Snipes' Blade, and I also had Blade 2. So again, very, very familiar character to me when he popped up. So I was able to name them all pretty rapidly, and I knew who Gambit was from the cartoon series. So I was hitting pretty strongly in terms of character recognition. So speaking of Wolverine, I've also got the Wolverine there. I mean, he's appeared in so many sort of slightly random, well, not random, but you know, sort of offshoots of his own. It's kind of funny because not only do I have that one, I've also got Logan, and I've also got ostensibly X-Men Origins Wolverine, where of course, ironically enough, Ryan Reynolds appears, but not, well, I mean, he kind of does appear as Deadpool, but not as the Deadpool we know, and of course that's a whole chain of gags as well. So this sort of set is actually sort of quite interesting for a number of reasons, because it's got crossovers left, right, and centre with the overall X-Men universe, and now of course the Marvel universe as we know it. So all good stuff, and all very sort of foreshadowy of things to come, I guess. Which was, of course, stuff like this. And I mean, I couldn't not have that. Ironically, I think because it came out on Disney Plus so quickly, I've yet to pick up a Blu-ray of Deadpool and Wolverine. I keep saying it, I'm alternating the way I say it, I know, but you know, all's fair. So yeah, so I've got those two, but I don't actually have the Wolverine crossover yet. So at some point I should pick that up just to be completist about it. But yes, I still can't believe he got away with making the first one, let alone carrying on to make one of the highest grossing of all time ever. It's just crazy, but fair dues to him. Now, there was a time, of course, when Disney Plus did not exist. So during that period, I bought my superhero discs. And then, because I'm an idiot, I also had to buy the DC ones, because I felt that was only fair if I was buying all the Marvel ones. So I was trying to be equally supportive of everybody. So let's begin with a spot of The Dark Knight Rising and a spot of The Man of Steel. And then we can perhaps bounce across to, I can get rid of them somewhere, a bit of Wonder Woman. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, which really should come before Wonder Woman, of course, but you know, it's a strange way to introduce her, I thought, just sort of dropping her into the middle of what is effectively the Doomsday comic. And, well, it's a Doomsday comic blended with the Dark Knight Returns comic, of course, because there are so many times in this one where I just sort of shouted at the screen saying, "That's straight out of the comic book," because they literally take the scenes out of the comic book and put them onto the screen. So, you know, but it was a clever move in that sense, because it did mean that somebody who did actually know the comic books well enough to do that. And then I've also got Aquaman and Justice League as well. Now, I'm not actually sure if I don't think this is the Snyder cut of the Justice League, and I suspect I'd probably prefer that one, so at some point I'll probably have to try and find that version of it as well. Although I've never really sat and looked into whether or not that was ever an official. I mean, it must be an official release, surely, must be, yeah. So anyway, so that's my sort of modern DC grouping there. Thinking about it, I do have a 1989 Batman on DVD as well, but again, I could do with updating that, but I don't have the other Batman films. I never got a box set of them, because I only really rate, I mean, I'd rate Returns as well, but you know, the original 89 is probably my favourite. I think this is a Steelbook. I think that's the Steelbook Iron Man, which is almost where it all began. But of course, really, it all began with the Incredible Hulk there. So that's where my sort of Marvel collection really begins. Now, as I say, the irony here, of course, is that you can watch all of these on Disney Plus very, very easily these days. But, you know, I've got Black Panther. I've got Spider-Man Homecoming. Guardians of the Galaxy. And it is annoying that they changed them slightly. Avengers, Age of Ultron. So, you know, this is a sort of plain Blu-ray. But I've also got these versions that have the sort of the silvery slip cases. Got Iron Man 3. I've got Ant-Man. Got Captain America's Civil War. Got Thor Ragnarok. And as you can see, that's in the sort of slipcase version of it. And I don't know what the history was behind that. I think at some point they probably just shifted over to using that slightly different packaging. I'm not sure, but maybe someone can tell me that in the comments. Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, of course, because it would have been rude not to. Got Doctor Strange. Ah, there you go. New collectible sleeves. Look, yeah, thanks for that. But it doesn't really help you if you started collecting before you release the collectible sleeves. Well, I suppose it does from their point of view because they expect you to rebuy the entire lot. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Avengers Assemble. God, it seems like such a long time ago now, doesn't it? It's crazy. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Noise. I haven't watched Quantumania. Thor the Dark World. Captain America the Winter Soldier. Iron Man 2 getting older and older. Thor with the sort of bleached eyebrows, obviously, unfortunate. Captain America the First Avenger, before Avengers were a thing, possibly. Iron Man, there we go. So you'll notice that it stops after a while, and indeed, I don't know why I don't have Black Panther on Blu-ray, but there just came a point to which it did seem increasingly useless to either A, try and keep up with the sheer volume they were releasing, and B, compete with the fact that I already had Disney Plus at that point. So I just stopped because, you know, what was the point anymore, really? And finally, having nearly walled myself into this room with DVDs and Blu-rays, the last two piles featuring The Martian and the complete Matrix trilogy on Blu-ray. This is going to be a great video for my insurance company, don't you think? Because, you know, I'm going to have a full record of everything I've got if the house burns down. It's going to be super like that. And they'll probably give me about 50p to get each of these, but that was the point I made initially, of course. And I am literally treading on DVDs now. Now, that was for the longest time, that was my version of The Matrix, which I just like because obviously it's got the nice green text on it, but that was my 2-disc containing The Matrix and The Matrix Revisited, and just on DVD. So that was a nice one. I always liked the feel of that one. Random one I picked up recently, This Means War and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, apparently. Haven't watched either of those yet, but on a very, very cold winter's night, perhaps. Now then, these two are a couple of my favourites, actually. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I do love that. Edgar Wright in full force. Just absolutely hilarious. And it's also hilarious because it's got future Marvel Cinematic Universe people in it, because it's got Chris Evans and not Aubrey Plaza, the Captain Marvel lady. Name won't come to me, but she's in it as well, basically. So if you ever want to giggle, Scott Pilgrim, fully recommend it. And of course, the best portrayal of Judge Dredd by Carl Urban. It's a great, great film. Now, I don't actually hate on the Stallone version, in fairness to it. Obviously, we see his face far too readily, but the Urban one is just brilliant. It's very, it's full on dark, but that's as it should be. I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great film. It was very, very well done. So yeah, definitely watch that if you never have. Well worth it. I think about the only Godzilla film in my selection, and I think that was the first MonsterVerse one, was it? I'm kind of getting lost with where they all fit in, but in any event, this is the latest Blade Runner, the 2049 Blade Runner. And I thought that was kind of all right, actually. I could probably do with watching it again, actually. But yeah, it was good solid film. And I think they did it just in time as well. I think before Harrison got any older. So I think they they timed that quite nicely. Got Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai. Got Slumdog Millionaire there. Haven't watched Slumdog Millionaire still. Haven't watched Ghost Dog either, actually. I've had that in my collection for donkey's years. I've seen some clips of it recently, actually, as well on YouTube, I think. I really should have a look at that one. Slumdog Millionaire, I think I'm less bothered about, to be honest. Just one of those that fell into my collection, I think. City of Lost Children. Now, I want to watch the... I think it's called The Dark City, actually, as well, because I thought I might have had that in my collection, but I don't think I do. I've been watching some clips of it recently, and I think I ought to pick that one up because I think it would appeal to me. And City of Lost Children I haven't watched for ages. Pan's Labyrinth, wow, that's a disturbing film. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's Guillermo del Toro, who did Hellboy and Blade 2. So it's very, very, I mean, it's terrific, but it's very dark. So just be warned if you ever have a look at that one. I've had this for ages. Les Visiteurs. I'm not sure I've ever watched it. But yeah, Monty Python meets Blackadder. That's probably accurate, I think. Stargate, the director's cut. James Spader, Kurt Russell. Of course, the film that spawned at least 3 or 4 other series that I can think of, all of which were hugely long running and very, very popular. So relatively simple premise in many respects, but just, sort of very, very cleverly expanded on over time. So they're fun. It's what I would call kind of middle of the road sci-fi, in the sense that a lot of it's very sort of episodic. It kind of resolves itself very neatly. It's just, you don't have to engage brain too much, but it is fun. It's fun sci-fi, Stargate. It's all good. On a similar vein, Starship Troopers. Now, Starship Troopers I could never quite figure out, I think initially. I couldn't figure out if it was trying to take the Michael out of itself, or if it was intended to be intentionally bad. I think I now understand it was kind of supposed to be parody in many respects, but it did take me a little while to figure that out, because I take my science fiction films quite seriously, so I was sort of thinking, is this rubbish or are they doing it on purpose, And I think it was the latter. Also got Ronin there. Again, I can't remember if I've really sat and watched it, but I think it's a very good De Niro flick, that one, so it might be worth picking that one up again at some point. Oh, now Elysium. Love a bit of Elysium. Very, very good film, I think. I've got it on Blu-ray as well. And there's my Stallone Judge Dredd as well on DVD, bless him. I mean, Elysium's obviously a very different era. Stallone's there because it's not 80s, I think it was 90s. But Elysium, all of the District 9, the Blomkamp films, they're terrific. I love those. They're bang on for me, those. So I always look forward to those films when they appear. This is quite a nice one, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm just looking at the list there. Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, probably quite an early role for him, and Elijah Wood. It's quite a sweet film, if I remember rightly, but I don't know if you've seen it. You'll know. If you don't, it might be worth a look. Batman Begins. Just I'm not sure how that sneaked into outside of my superhero collection, but that needs to go somewhere else because it's out of order. Shocking. Okay. Now, not certainly superhero, perhaps, but Equilibrium. Again, Christian Bale film, really, really good. If you've not watched it, watch it. Really, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Okay, let's move Equilibrium. Serenity. I must have watched that film so many times on a train. I ripped it onto my ancient iPod Touch, I think, back in the day. But as you can see, I do own the disc as well. But I just love that film. It was a terrific roundup for Firefly, that, and some really great space combat and indeed hand-to-hand combat and comedy in it. It's just a great mix. And I got Tron Legacy there as well, which I also rate. I think that was a great sort of reintroduction of the concept of Tron in a modern setting. And I saw it on IMAX, which was awesome. So definitely recommend those two. But I would, because I own them, obviously. Arrival, again, I need to watch it again, but I thought it was very good cerebral sci-fi. I liked it for that. Will Smith, Jaden Smith, After Earth, not so cerebral sci-fi. I did watch it once, but not this copy, and I thought it was a bit sort of, meh, but it is what it is, again. It's a popcorn movie, I guess you'd call it. Chappie there, which won't come as a surprise given what I was saying about Blomkamp before, and also District 9. So again, two great films there, very, very good films. and well worth a look if you are for some bizarre reason unfamiliar with them. Now, Interstellar was one of those films I think I last watched when I was a bit poorly, and as such it probably didn't help my state of mind, because again it's very much a hard science fiction film, which is right up my street, but I think I need to give it another watch to really understand what was going on. It felt to me like there was a bit of a causality issue with it, or at least a causality question mark, but again I need to watch it again and maybe read some more of what other people have said about it to actually appreciate whether or not I'm barking up the wrong tree there. And what have we got here? Well, we've got the Chronicles of Riddick, of course, which again, definitely one of my favourites. I really like the Riddick series of films. The Chronicles of obviously took it to a much higher level than the original one of Pitch Black. And we've also got Life of Pi there, which I haven't watched, but just happen to have in my collection. Not two films you generally see pictured together, I would imagine. Now then, Donnie Darko. Very sort of well-known fantasy film, but again one where you probably sort of need to watch it in a sensible frame of mind, because it's quite dark. Ultraviolet, Mila Jovovich. I don't do Resident Evil, but I do very much admire her for her martial arts and general sort of action flick films. And Ultraviolet was I think one of the sort of, you know, the good ones sort of thing. You know, it's probably not terribly well known, but I enjoyed it as a sort of a romp, if you like. Inception, I think I've watched it once, which probably isn't enough times. Independence Day Resurgence, I got it because, you know, Independence Day, it is popcorn sci-fi, but it's popcorn sci-fi well executed, so I can appreciate it for that, if nothing else. You'll be glad to know I'm nearly there. Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, again one I've watched quite a lot, because again the fight sequences in it are brilliant, and there's Pitch Black with Vin Diesel on the cover, special edition apparently, but not a Blu-ray, neither of those are, so again possibly a point of upgrade at some point. Random Monsoon Wedding, haven't watched it. Bowling for Columbine. Now, I know of this one, but again, I don't think I watched it. I don't know if it's still relevant, but obviously, you know, he's well known for being quite sort of controversial, Michael Moore, so I was quite interested to watch that at some point. Mad Max Fury Road. Still haven't caught up on it. Still haven't caught up on it. Need to. Life, ditto. I don't know if Life's actually any good. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know, but I have it available to me anyway should I need it at any point. I know the basic premise. Gravity, I don't know, I'm not sure if I really got Gravity. I mean, I appreciated it, and it was, you know, the special effects and everything else obviously was spot on, but I think because I've watched so much science fiction now, I was a bit sort of, yeah, okay, and yeah, maybe that's unfair, I don't know. World War Z, I have watched it now. I think that's only a DVD of it, and I thought it was, you know, it was fine. I'm not massively into my zombie stuff, but I appreciated the way in which it was done. I thought it was, you know, it was well structured, well paced, and all of that. So, you know, I can't remember if there's a series of it. Did you do a series of it? Galaxy Quest. The Theory of Everything. No, still haven't watched it. But always meant to. But yes, definitely on my list of things to eventually watch. I mean, Galaxy Quest, if you don't know what it is, I can't really explain. Vin Diesel Riddick there, so I probably do have a full suite of Riddickness when I sort of dig hard enough, but I think I've just mixed them all up again, so I might have to try and form a small trilogy's worth or something of Riddick there to try and get it more coherently done. I've got Ready Player One, which I was slow to get to, but have got to and really very much enjoyed it for obvious reasons, as you might expect. Vin Diesel, Babylon AD. Again, just a sort of interesting science fiction premise to it, as I recall, but I don't think I ever really stopped and watched it all in one go, so I just picked it up cheaply so I could have a look at it at some point, because, you know, I do like his flicks. I have no idea why I got Jurassic World. I think just because I hadn't seen it at that point, and I just wanted to have it to hand. And Watchmen, which again, a pretty good version of the graphic novel which I have. So you know, I thought I was impressed with it. And I can't remember whether or not it predated Avengers or not. But obviously not really DC or Marvel. So you know, a slightly sort of separate take on the superhero genre. So you know, good film. There has been a series of it as well, I believe. Ooh, that's going to cause a catastrophe. Hang on. Rescued it. There we go. Now Lucy. Lucy is a great film. I love Lucy as a science fiction film. And it intrigues me that Scarlett Johansson keeps doing things like Lucy and even Ghost in the Shell. Because I'm sort of thinking, well, doesn't she have enough money? Why does she do these relatively obscure films that are sort of almost independent, you know? I mean, maybe Ghost in the Shell less so, but I thought Lucy was quite out there. But I think she played it brilliantly, and it's a great science fiction film, I think, in and of itself, and it's very much of the sort of genre approach that I enjoy. So if you haven't ever seen Lucy, have a look at it. Kill Bill, well, you know, it would be rude not to, wouldn't it, really? I don't have any of the Quentin Tarantino's. I might even have got that more from my dad, because my dad likes or did like his kung fu stuff, so you know, it might even be for him that more so, I'm not sure. And of course Pacific Rim. I seem to have misplaced my Pacific Rim Uprising disc. I now realise I might have done that on purpose. And we've got Pixels there, which again is a great sort of romp, both on Blu-ray there. So, but Pacific Rim I still massively rate. I think it's a great example of intelligently done genre films. Avatar. Don't have the follow-ups, still haven't watched it, but I will at some point. And Live, Die, Repeat, which again, I like for its premise as much as anything else. I just think that again was very well executed, which you'd expect from with Cruise money behind it. But I enjoyed it as conceptually as well as with the sort of the exosuity sort of action as well. I think I'm at an end. I think I'm actually at an end. My only slight snag now is I've got to put everything back away again. That will probably take me some time. I suspect that when I come to edit this, I will find that this is too big for a single video. So you might well be watching the end of part 2 at this point. If you are, then thank you for sticking with it, because this may have been of interest only to myself. This is pretty much everything that's in my collection. There were a few stragglers lying about the place, but they are just stragglers and outliers. So I'm going to call it a day there, because this has been an unexpectedly large project for the course of a weekend. Cheers for now.